Hello and welcome to episode 91 of The Game Pit. This is Ronan and I am joined by three guests this time round, but no Sean, unfortunately. Big shoes to fill. Hey everybody!
Big clown shoes to fill.
This is a Council Chamber special in which we're going to be discussing role-playing games. So, the 20 of you that carried on listening after that, I better introduce my co-host. First of all is my brother making his debut in the Game Pit. Welcome, Stephen.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, delete as applicable.
Very good. It's an edit yourself episode. Back for the second time in about 4 episodes. I'm not sure why, but he's here. It's Adam.
By popular demand, I'm sure.
By demand. It's a lot of emails in one day you were sending me.
Signed Adam's mum.
Mrs. Adam. And
Same beard and everything.
We said we weren't going to mention that. And the third one of my co-host this time around, back after a couple of years away in the gaming wilderness, part of which is going to be explained today, is Lloyd. Hey, Lloyd.
How is this episode 91? How have you not gotten better in that time?
You'd think. You really would.
You sure it's not episode 3?
If you look at the download figures, it would suggest we really haven't gotten better. That's not the way that graph is supposed to go.
It's about time we change that then.
Let's do it. We're going to kick on with a discussion, all things role-playing, about how these guys got into it, their current games they're playing, the characters, the stories, maybe some hints and tips.
Safe words.
Can we just clarify it's tabletop RPGs we're talking about here?
Oh, no? Okay, so to give you a little bit of an introduction as to where the guys have come from, and indeed myself, we're going to start off with our tabletop gaming background, the board games, card games, the kind of stuff that we usually talk about on the Game Pit. Kicking off with Lloyd. Okay,
so I think I'm the kind of classic jaded gamer, Phil. I've played 1800 different games at this point over the last 10 years. Mostly Euro games, dabbled in war games, dabbled in Ameritrash, dabbled in basically everything that comes in a box.
Yes, and some quite dense playing, I'd say, there for a couple of years, where you're playing most days.
You're saying I'm what?
Yeah, indeed. And you branched out into a lot of HeroScape, a lot of X-Wing, and recently...
Oh, HeroScape.
Yes.
Cocaine addiction was so much cheaper.
And more fun for everyone around you.
I may have been down a slight rabbit hole when I spent £5,500 on HeroScape.
Oh!
In like 3 months.
Oh!
It's fine.
Yeah,
Hi,
okay.
my name's Lloyd.
This is not a therapy session.
Like you're in a safe place.
I've been dry now for about 4 hours.
It smells like it. Adam, your background in tabletop gaming.
Similar but less intense. So again, about 10 years ago, I found London on board. I kind of got a background in Games Workshop and in Magic the Gathering from when I was a teenager.
Right.
And
It's a very glass house.
Like, it really is.
I'm throwing sand.
I had tried role-playing games once as a nipper, but was used to like the more structured kind of Games Workshop. So that was my background before I came to London, and then from there it's been very much Euro games. I love like a kind of Knizia, a sort of middleweight, thinky Euro.
Or a weird card game.
And a weird card game.
Yeah.
Love me some weird card games. And Lloyd over the last few years has kind of dragged me a bit into things like X-Wing and Armada, but it's not quite my wheelhouse.
It's not your home.
I like pushing some cubes.
Not enough cubes, I get it.
Exactly.
And Steve.
Tabletop games,
Yeah.
pretty much zero.
Yeah.
We've
We've tried a few
Monopoly,
times.
Ludo, a couple of things as a kid. You and I have played some games, but my competitive streak has come out somewhat, and unless it's cooperative, then it usually ends up with the board on the floor, one of us stomping off. So
That's
yeah,
very much hereditary.
pretty much.
Yeah.
I've taught him well. My
You leave my
Padawan.
children alone. Stephen has got the honour of having come to London once and played maybe the worst Euro game I've ever played in my entire life. We
Was
played
it Harbour?
No, God.
Some Russian vampire.
It was long and rubbish. Metro 2033.
Oh my god.
It was terrible. It was like my last hope of getting Steve into board gaming. He came all the way to London. It was like, I'm really, really sorry.
That was woeful.
So I'm definitely partly.
Don't call me again for 2 years. I think it's just about up, so that's why I'm here this evening.
Yeah, mum made you talk to me again. So you kind of have an idea what my tabletop gaming background is. Actually quite similar to Lloyd and Adam's. Maybe about 10 years ago I got into them, more of a Euro gamer than the others, but I would like to dabble. And moving on then to our background in RPGs, you know, where we're coming from as we discuss moving onwards. For myself, being 7 years younger than Steve, and you're going to hear he was into it as a teenager.
Wait, you're younger?
Imagine that, I know.
One of you has had a rough life.
You said you were going to be nice to him, okay? That looks pickled.
It rhymes with moaning.
Well, it's everybody who knows you who looks aged. Steve has escaped that so far.
Dorian Gray over there. Did you say something nice about my brother? Because that was also against the rules. So, being 7 years younger, apparently, than my brother, he had a load of role-playing stuff in the house, and I used to just look through it and check out the rules and create characters to no end and create pages and books of dungeons. As I became a teenager myself, he had moved on from it, I think. So we never actually got to play role-playing games together. But then I ran a few games for my friends, nothing very serious. Campaigns never got more than 4 or 5 sessions. And then I started playing rugby about 14, 15. That was all spare time used up until about 2 weeks ago when I did one more session for Lloyd in order to prepare for this. When Lloyd gymmed us. No, I told you it was rugby, and that's why you had to bring Vaseline.
You were very rough.
Which game did you play?
We played Star Wars
Force and Destiny.
Is
that a D6 system? Or
No, it's the new FFG one.
Okay, yeah.
You know where all the expertise is in this room because I went silent.
Yeah, I thought I'd jump in there. I've seen that blank look, Ronan.
This finger means you speak. Okay, Steve, I've spoiled a little bit. Your background in RPGs.
Yeah, so I got into them, I was in my early teens, so it would have been early, mid-80s. So I guess it was like the second golden age of RPGs, if you like. It was the first wave where D&D first came in the 70s and what have you.
We had our red box with the dragon.
That's right, the basic set, yeah. And then there was the early ones was like the wood grain set and the white box, but we by the time it came around to us, it's sort of the second wave.
I think Steve just geek credited me there, didn't he? It was like, you think red set is
it? It was more it was more D&D we were playing then. There was an explosion at the time. White Dwarf had just started in the UK. Imagine magazine was going on. So the sort of games we played started with D&D with a friend of mine, friends of his, some school friends. I kept it quiet at school because I didn't want to get beaten up. And I too had got into rugby, so it didn't really mix the two. Also went into Traveller at the time. I remember playing Traveller back in the day. RuneQuest, 2nd edition, just before the Avalon Hill one came out. Call of Cthulhu I bought, loved it, but never played it. And Middle-earth, so I collected some of that as well. But a lot like yourself, really, there weren't many role players around or gamers around our way at the time. So a lot of my time I spent reading the rule books. And I loved the artwork.
That seems to be a really common thing. A lot of people seem to have bought books or collected series of things. And, spend more time reading it than ever.
Exactly.
I get tempted now to do it when
definitely.
the law books come out and stuff. I remember Deities and Demigods. I must have read it 10 times cover to cover. And your Golden Heroes that you had.
Oh God, yeah.
The only person ever to use character sheets was me because I just made them up and wrote their whole stories on the back and everything.
So out of all those games, we actually at the time only ever played D&D, and I refereed some Traveller games, and that was it. The rest of it didn't play. But new RuneQuest inside, never played it. Knew it inside out, upside down. Played the solo games that you get, the adventures, but no, never played them at the time. And then, like yourself, moved more into rugby and things. And my late teens just handed everything on to you and moved on. I guess we'll talk about the latter part of our. We came back to role-playing later on in the episode. Let's
do that. Let's move on to Adam. Okay. You guys, I think, are newer to role-playing games, so they're going to talk about what they're playing basically now, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I kind of had 2 avenues in. About 3 years ago, some friends from theatre, I knew that we'd kind of played some board games together, but I knew that they also did some role-playing, and I had an idea, which has still never come to fruition, about writing a play about people playing D&D.
Niche.
So, increasingly not.
Stranger Things.
It's
happened.
There's lots of celebs playing Catan now,
I think
and
was
D&D.
ahead of his time.
So I kind of said to them, look, can I just come and sit in and observe and just see how it works? And they're like, yeah, come along. And then there was a guy missing, and they said, do you want to just step in and play his character?
How many times did you go and observe before they let you play?
No, first time.
Behind like a one-way window.
Water boy.
No, there just happened that there was a
Occasionally
guy.
the cupboard door just creaks open. I'm not here.
Just not ready. Get back here. Do I really need the gimp suit? Yes.
I'm hard to talk.
I have no idea what that joke means.
Good, carry on. Adam.
So I played just in this one session. I was like, well, that was brilliant.
What was it?
That was GURPS, which is the General Universal Role-Playing System. It's Steve Jackson's system, where you essentially make your own setting. And so this was a steampunk setting,
Okay.
a kind of dimension traveling steampunk setting, and immediately I was hooked. I said, "That's loads of fun. Can we write me up a character?" And I started getting involved in it.
Back in the cupboard.
No, I played with them for about 6 months, but it was quite a long way to travel. And then around about that time, a friend of mine and Lloyd, a friend of through LOB, Alec, said that he'd just picked up 5th edition D&D and wanted to have a go at running it, and were we interested? So,
Which has kind of exploded. 5th edition D&D.
Yeah.
It seems to be
I think it was us.
definitely.
we're carrying a wave of renaissance. Of
we're
RPGs.
the trendsetters.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like, brilliant. Yeah, I'll come and play that.
We recorded
I
this
think
podcast 2 years ago. We'd totally been able to claim that.
I think the reason 5th edition really made it explode is that it's so easy to get into, and it's just you just pick it up and you're away, and it was loads and loads of fun. So I've been doing that quite a lot, and then since then I've also bought the GURPS source books and started running a couple of campaigns with GURPS.
I might be very wrong, and feel free to correct me if I am, but is D&D 5th edition the first kind of really accessible D&D?
I
seems certainly
think
stripped down.
people would argue that 3rd or 3.5
Okay.
was pretty. I think
Feel
the
free to
point
edit
was
that
that
out.
4th made it much less accessible. Keep it in. I'd be wrong.
Fourth was one that went to feats and stuff like that. Am I talking rubbish?
There are feats in 5th as well.
Oh, there. Okay.
But I think it made things much more specific and kind of technical
okay.
and numbery.
Right. That's a real word. So currently we've got GURPS.
So I ran some
D&D 5th
GURPS,
edition.
play D&D, I play Edge of Empire, which is the Star Wars game that we play with Lloyd.
Yeah.
And I've just bought Fate, and I'm thinking about running some Fate sessions as well. So I'm totally just
You're in. You're fully
in.
plunged.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, this is why when I was on the review of 2016 episode, I was the worst person to be on the episode.
Not the worst. Lloyd.
So it's really interesting listening to you talking about your history of role-playing games, because all of you are really kind of invested in the worlds and sort of talking about the environment you're in and all the things you can do. And I was the complete other end of the spectrum, being mostly a Eurogamer. As you know, theme is the least important thing in the world to me. So I was like, oh, well, I played this game and this game. Cool, done. What's next? And to listen to all of you talk about it shows, like, or reminded me, I suppose, how far away I was when I came to it. I was very reluctant to play role-playing games because, for me, I've always kind of had this sort of spectrum thinking in my head for gaming. And you have sort of Eurogaming on the left-hand side, where it's always what you're doing is making interesting decisions, and then Ameritrash on the other side, where what you're doing is telling an interesting story. And then you'll have things beyond that. So, you know, if you go all the way to the left on Eurogames, past that, you'll end up with something like chess, where it's all just pure decision. There's no pretense at theme or anything. If you go all the way past Ameritrash, what you end up with is role-playing games. And so, because the story and the theme was never interesting to me, I was really reluctant to play role-playing games. And
It
so
was
when
a shock to a number of us.
Absolutely, yeah. So when Alec first invited me, I was really kind of reticent to get involved in it, and I think I said no the first couple of times, and then agreed to sort of play one session, and the one session, became 4 or 5, and it took me, I think, probably 8 or 9 sessions before I started to really actually get into it.
But something must have kept you going back to go to 8 or 9.
Too polite to drop out.
That's not true.
Too
Something must have kept you going.
Did you want to talk about Seafall?
Actually, it's in here. I managed to wangle it in so Adam can have a proper go at it. So currently, what are you playing?
So we are playing the D&D campaign with Adam, where I am consistently useless and just a danger to everybody around
Who
me.
are you in it? Give us a little bit of detail.
So
about
I'm
this,
playing a drow sorcerer. All of his abilities kind of just spring forth, and he has no control over them, which ties nicely into he has wild magic. So when I cast a spell, periodically on a random chance, something crazy will happen. The first time it happened, it cast lightning out and killed a whole bunch, emptied a room full of things that we were clearly outmatched by.
Okay.
But then the second time it happened, it made my face blue.
Interesting.
And it's just this kind of it's a random dice roll and a random outcome of stuff that happens, but it fits.
Smurf.
It was very Smurf-like, yeah. There was a scene that Alec had spent a long time
Smurfette,
crafting.
by the way.
She's the evil one.
Sometimes.
There was a long scene that Alec had spent crafting as a GM where my character was meeting his god for the first time.
Okay.
And it was this elaborate scene, and he built this whole kind of underground cavern that was full of gemstones and things, and this enormous thing that he developed. But my wild magic went off just before.
Yeah.
And so I was turned into a sheep. And he had no way of undoing it, so he just kind of went with it. And so I went off to meet my god as a sheep. And one of our other party was like, what's going on? Where is the sheep going?
This is a critical moment.
And so he was a druid, so he turned into a sheep as well to come with me to find out what was going on. And he's like, I'm going to ask you in sheep language what's going on. I'm like, sheep don't have language, I'm just going to walk. And it was this enormously just like
GMing
bizarre
you must
thing.
be a real pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. What on earth is happening? There are two sheep off to meet a god.
I think that was maybe the point where, like, with the first few episodes when we played it, and I was watching Lloyd play and not, I could see he wasn't really sure about it and wasn't engaging with the character very much. And there have been a couple of thresholds that Lloyd has crossed, but I think that was one point where I could just see it in his eyes.
That's definitely a threshold.
I'm just playing a sheep. I'm just going to absolutely go for it.
Point of no return, even.
And yeah, it's that point where obviously deciding there was a language that sheep had would have been so much easier just to explain what was going on. But like, no, sheep don't have a language.
No context for this.
Yeah, I'll just respond in a non-committal bar and carry on.
We're going to the biggest field of grass ever. This is, I don't know, how would sheep considered
It was
a god?
interesting.
Okay.
So that's one. So then, sorry, from
yeah,
that,
go on. You
I
also
then ended up GMing one of the Star Wars games.
Yeah.
So we're running that now.
You're GMing Age of Empires.
It is indeed, yeah. So that's obviously in the Star Wars galaxy. It's set just after A New Hope. So the Death Star has been destroyed, but all of the characters are far, far away from the action and are essentially scoundrels of some variety, and all kind of people living on both the edge of the Empire, as it implies, but also on the edge of the law. So you won't necessarily all be heroes. You might be doing things that are criminal, actively bad. You might just be murdering people for money. But it's that kind of, it's the grey areas in that.
Like living in London.
Universe. Pretty much, yeah.
Cool, right. Steve, what are you currently playing?
So we moved out of London now, live down the south coast, and we have a gaming group there, Bournemouth Old School Gamers. We are on Facebook, and there's about 4 or 5 of us regulars. We're playing a Traveller campaign.
Okay.
So we finished off a Pathfinder campaign. I'm going to say it's a few months ago, but it was probably this time last year.
Okay.
Old age kicking in, where just one year just blends into the next.
It's like 97.
So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
It's current enough. So who were you in the Pathfinder campaign?
Pathfinder campaign, I was a dwarf fighter. And it's interesting listening to you talking about your character, because I know the premise of role-playing is they say that you should, or you can be anyone you want to be, and you can play something completely removed from it. But I am absolutely convinced that people play the characters they want to be in real life. Honestly.
You want to be a dwarf fighter?
Well, it's the violence, you know. And I mean,
did you ever turn up in full gi with you?
my jiu-jitsu gi, yeah, that's it. Started running around the floor. I'm absolutely convinced that people live vicariously through their characters what they actually want to do. So there's lots of large axes, chopping people up and what have you. Basically clearing it out for the thinkers in the group are there, the druids and whatever else. And I'm like, just head down, steam in there.
On that bombshell, who are you in Traveller?
I'm ex-army, and again, I have this sort of inverted commas special power that I'm always first on the draw. So sure enough, go in there and clear everything out. And again, for the other guys to use their psych powers and whatever else to think through the problem. If a scorpion or machine guns required, then I'm your man.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Give it some thought. I'm going to be over here murdering people.
Exactly. Well, it's got to be done, isn't
Having
it?
grown up with Steve, this is we're getting flashbacks.
Shot.
You're on Greyjoy moment here.
PTSD kicking in.
And no GMing in recent time then?
No, not. But I have just bought the new Cthulhu and Pulp Cthulhu as well.
Yeah.
I haven't bought it, actually. I was given it as presents for Christmas and for my birthday, including from yourself. And I am looking to GM some Cthulhu campaigns.
I got
Probably
given
looking
the
at next year.
new Call of Cthulhu one-shot quick start thing.
Yes.
The booklet. Have you got
Yes.
that?
Yeah, I have done.
Cool.
Yeah, I
I was
have
going to give
done.
it to you. Anyway.
Yes.
Cool. So looking to go back to GMing.
Yeah, so carrying on Traveller, we've got a fantastic, Rob Knott, a fantastic GM there, and looking to play Pathfinder again, and I'm definitely looking to do some Cthulhu next year.
Cool. And Adam, what are you currently doing? I know you're in the same D&D campaign.
Yes, absolutely. So
you a
along
sheep?
with loads of characters of Vaha, I'm playing Dom Hanghammer, who is also a dwarf. He is a dwarf bard who...
Really?
Yeah, in a similar kind of vein. I was like, I quite like him to be kind of, a poet and a musician. But just because of the way that the campaigns have gone, and it's sort of the things we encountered early on, I ended up taking him very much down a fighty path. So he has just become a bit of a tank with like a few spells.
Taking him down a fighty path, but he still writes a song for every episode.
Early on, I did.
Is he like a bass drummer? Is that what he just got boom, boom, boom? And are you any other campaigns other than that?
Yeah, so also in the Edge of Empire campaign that Lloyd's running, and so for that I wanted to go in a different direction, and also I was quite enjoying playing difficult characters and making things hard for myself and for the
possibly
GM.
antagonising another one of the players in the group. I mean, just maybe.
yeah. Why not? So in that campaign,
that was
No.
in that campaign, my character is an assassin droid. And is on the kind of mercenary track. He's all about the fighting, but after years of being forced into killing people by a restraining bolt, he has become a pacifist and refuses to fight anybody. So all of his skills are only useful for killing people, but he won't do it. So, which was partly a reaction to the thing with Dom, where I was like, I want to take a character where I'm not just hitting things all the time.
You took a trained killer to make it
to then have him just refuse to do so all the time.
You're the best. And
it's a lot of fun.
Any GMing at the moment?
Yes, so for some other friends...
He doesn't have other friends, but I was there.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, no, I did run it with the D&D group.
I'm starting to think it might be me that he's engaged to.
So she thinking that.
My fiancée and another couple who we're friends with, they had kind of expressed an interest. Selena's interest faded very, very fast. But the others were...
And yeah, she usually sticks with losing campaigns.
4 minutes.
So that's using GURPS. I have a near future sci-fi setting which I tried, and then also a kind of magical Iron Age Britain setting, which we sort of tried a starter of both to see which people
Druidic.
liked. And Druidic, absolutely,
Nice,
which we wanted to roll with.
Okay, I'm going to start with Steve again and work around. Especially, I think, Stephen, what do role-playing games give you that the tabletop board and card games didn't give you?
I think, again, art reflecting life. A bit of a maverick in life, and I don't like rules.
No.
Yeah, and it's the flexibility, and I think you can come in not knowing any of the rules and play an RPG and enjoy it. Although obviously you need a good GM to enable you to do that. Mm-hmm. For example, I had one of the most enjoyable sessions I've had in recent times.
Yes.
I rolled the dice once, but it was all narrative with the GM. Mm-hmm. So we're talking through the story and we're reacting. And I think that I think you could use any setting and any set of rules to do that. I think the GM needs to be flexible enough to just run with it and have your things about your sheep that don't talk. And have it your killer robots that don't want to kill, and it's just the flexibility that gives you. You can go anywhere, be anything, do anything, and you don't have to sit there with the rule book. Looking at it, saying, "I'm sure you can only do this, that, and the other." And half the game is there with rules lawyers, who are my least favourite type of RPGers.
Probably why you're not getting on with tabletop games, because I'm the one teaching you the rules.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one. We can agree.
It's really interesting coming at it, obviously, from having been a Eurogamer forever, and you play games with people who are predominantly role players.
Yeah.
And you get to a point now, like, I'm not sure what this rule is. And as a Eurogamer, you're like, cool, let me get out this book and I'll find out.
Let me Google board game geek.
No, that's not how it works. We must find out the exact rule, argue over the phrasing of the rule, and then do exactly
This
as it
is
says.
chaos!
Yeah. And so it's really interesting in the role-playing games, like reading my first ever role-playing rule book, where it says, if you're not sure of something, just decide, figure it out later, come back, just don't delay the story.
Do what's fun.
Yeah, and that felt like such an alien concept to me, but of course it makes complete sense.
Yes,
as long as there's consistency throughout it, then I think the GM should be able to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. Mm-hmm. If that is the only rule you have, as long as he applies the consistency throughout. For me, personally, that's what makes it such fun to play.
So that lack of control on what we're doing and how we're winning and what have you almost puts me off role-playing games. Because I actually prefer the system and the control and this is my goal, this is what I'm trying to do, this is how we're trying to get to it.
Do you see it as a competition and a task to achieve? And
even if it's cooperative, but there's a defined time.
It's very rarely about winning.
Yeah,
I think if you enjoy that, you really need both in your life. There's no way that role plays will ever replace tabletop games for me, because it's something very, very, very different, and it satisfies a different kind of desire a different form of entertainment. So if I kind of want to sit down and play some board games, and somebody says, "Oh, hey, we've got this role-playing game instead," I'll probably say no. I'll say no. The plan was to sit down and push some cubes around.
You're in a different mind space.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of left brain and right brain. The role-playing game is about just creative storytelling.
Yeah.
Game is almost a misnomer. It's just an experience where you sit down and you create a story together. Yes, it has the kind of dice rolling, following rules, the attribute stuff. But really, in a way, that's just... It's to make it an improvisational experience, because you can't sort of go in saying, this is exactly what the story's going to be and this is what's going to happen. Everybody has to respond when those dice fall, and you say, oh, that thing that was going to be really easy and you were definitely going to be through that door. Well, you're not now. So what happens instead? And it's just... makes you think in such a different way and kind of really collaborate.
I sometimes get the feeling, though, that although the GM is allowing you to do things and they can interpret what's going on, they have an end goal in sight. They know this scenario, this is where we have to get to, this is the denouement or whatever it might be. So no matter what I do, the GM is trying to get me to that position. And if they try to enforce the rules too rigorously, a bad dice roll can kill me, and it's kind of ruined everything. And it's always in the back of their mind, yeah, but I need to push them towards this is what we're going to do. Now, the only recent role playing I've done it was the start scenario with Lloyd, where very much it is on rails.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you start somewhere, you're trying to get to a temple at the end, and you're trying to rescue someone.
Spoilers.
I felt like we could. That's literally in the intro. I felt like we could have just sprinted and said, we start to sprint. And we sprinted, and there'd been one bit we had to stop where there had been a fight, and then we sprinted, and then we're at the end. And it could have been a half an hour session. And I know you do need the buy-in from the players, but how much is there the feeling that the GM is always actually pushing you towards a certain position? And you don't have that free form?
Bad GM, I can say a good GM is probably is able to adapt to that, right? So you might have an overarching idea of this is what the story's going to be, this is where we're going to get to, but you know, it might never get to that, and you might go off on a complete tangent and do totally different things. And I think, Steve, you might be able to answer this better than I can, but I think...
I doubt it.
Mind
you, haven't listened to you this evening, maybe I can.
But I think it'll be a combination of either, if you have to get to endpoint, you go there in a completely different route and a different adventure, and you end up there, instead of ending up there 2 hours from now, you end up there 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Or you never go there and you do something totally different, and instead we explore this space over here.
Exactly.
And I think either of those are possible.
Is that possible with the campaigns that you get and the scenarios that you buy?
It's interesting to use the word campaign, because I guess you know what you're getting into. I guess you're almost like forming a relationship with the GM, and it's going to be a wham bam thank you man one off, whereby it is on rails, to use your analogy, and he, a good GM will get you there, but you don't realise that he's been herding cats and has wanted you to go that way. A poor GM, it'll be completely obvious and it won't be enjoyable for anyone. Or it can be a campaign, and it's literally, there's the universe, here are your set of characters, what do you want to do? He may have a number of scenarios in mind, and he may make it up as he goes along, very much the way we are this evening.
Never lift the curtain. This is all carefully planned.
I think with Ronan, it's very obvious.
I know GMs that have a set of storylines, and they can pick it up and drop it into any of the systems that they're using, and they can intend to use it on one system, and as we said earlier, they go off on a complete tangent and miss it out. So it is very much dependent upon the gaming group and the maturity of the group as well. For very beginners, they may want that more restrictive scenario just to get used to it, get used to the system, rolling the dice, get used to their characters, build up a bit of XP, and then start ad-libbing and freestyling later on.
Freestyling?
Aye.
You get that in somewhere. So, for me, coming back into role-playing, and I thank you, Lloyd, before I start ragging on it, but playing that first structured scenario, which I kind of was like, okay, great, I've probably done this a few times before. They're all very similar. And what I said when I was talking to someone this week about it was, I kind of wish I'd been dumped into a campaign 6 or 7 scenarios along, and it was already open. And I could already, there was stuff going on, there was already a story, and I could pick up in the middle of what was going on. And I didn't have to go through that whole thing of, we don't know each other, let's learn who each other are, let's do very low level things, and kind of, because as you say, I think feel this campaign goes on, I felt like I wanted to run before I could walk. In terms of structure then, again, is there a limit to how freeform you want a role-playing game to be? Now, Adam, you keep saying that you want GURPS, which is a very freeform mechanical system, but in terms of how the players play, how hard is it to then have any coherence to what you're doing, because there's almost, you've got printed out campaign scenarios where this is kind of where you have to go along and you're getting herded down it. Then I think probably most GMs go along to using some elements of that but designing their own and being able to adapt, and buying a campaign book like you were saying with the Murder on the Orient Express earlier in Call of Cthulhu. I have a campaign and a setting, and I've got more confidence to take you around. And then you go to real freeform, which is, almost all acting and all improv. And like you said, you love that session, Steve, whereby it was almost all improv and acting and one dice roll. So I'm going to aim it to Adam, because you've taken on GURPS, which is pretty open. How do you find the balance of between structure and it's too boring and so freeform that it's like, woo, do whatever we want?
I think to some extent it's going to depend on your players. So the first time I ran the GURPS campaign, and this was with the sort of near future sci-fi setting, all of them were completely new to it. And so it was kind of a challenge in that I had to kind of say, okay, well, here's and it's sci-fi, so here's a galaxy, here's anywhere that they could go, and kind of here's a shipyard where it's going to be really difficult for them to get this ship. Except that when they were doing the character creation, I'd just sort of given them an outline. I'd said, this is from the present day through to that point in history. This is the technology that's developed. These are the aliens we've encountered. This is a quick
introduction. So there's 700 years of history. Take a seat. There will be an exam at the end.
There was a certain amount of pre-reading that they had to do. But then one of them was just like, but the main thing I said was, why are you out on the edge of space? And one of them was like, well...
We're all conversing with Old Norse here, aren't we? So I'd said, oh, here's how the body how it works. Write your character. And so one of them kind of didn't really read any of that and was like, okay, here's lots of stuff. And I was like, oh, this is already great. This is useful. And then she was like, and he can shapeshift into a lion. And I was like, no, I don't think he can.
Extinct millennia ago.
I don't think he can. So, but then I was like, well, all right, I'll work with this then. So he thinks he can shapeshift into a lion, and actually it's just a psychosis that he has. And then one of the other guys was like, okay, my character is out there on the edge of the universe because she won the lottery and she's a millionaire. And so I'd had this whole thing where they had to really difficultly kind of like work to acquire a ship, and he just wanted and was like, I'll buy that one. Lovely, off we go.
I do think also that the players do bear some responsibility towards the gaming group, not to make it all about them and to go off and say, right, I want to be a tree and I'm going to stay here and grow for 500 years. Being ridiculous. But in terms of that, then the GM does need the players to go along and work together as a group, because you can get very selfish RPGers, which is an absolute and utter pain.
Yeah, and I think the point you're making, sorry to cut you off, the point you were saying about trying
on the point of selfish.
Yeah, back to me. The point about trying to win, you're not trying to beat the GM in a battle. You're trying to work together to tell the most interesting story you can, essentially. So yeah, you have to remember that the GM isn't your nemesis. They might be putting characters in front of you have to defeat, but that's not the overall objective.
So how much there is the balance between the players are controlling what's happening in the session and the GM is controlling what's happening in the session?
It's very much down to the group dynamics. So you can sit down and write for hours and come up with whole worlds and say, if they choose to go here, I've got something ready for that. If they choose to go off in this other direction, if they turn around and just fly off into the middle of space, I've got something for that. I've got it covered. But if they do that, then equally the player's going to have to realise, if they sort of say, aha, well, we're going to ignore that and do our own thing, then they're going to get something improvised, and that it might be fun. And in that case, they kind of have to help you out.
Yeah.
And join in with the improvising and kind of say, well, actually, we're going to take this ship and we're going to fly off in this direction because I have my own kind of quest to fulfill. And potentially that's kind of selfish, but if it's all of the players together saying, well, that's what we want to do, that's the plan, then it's just, how do you roll with that? How do you quickly adapt the stuff you had or make up stuff on the fly? And that's why I like GMing, is because it's the challenge of that.
And with the improv, are you finding that those are, let's say, the highs and the lows of a session, where they're the ones that can be the best sessions or the worst sessions, and the ones that are structured are, you kind of know what standard game you're going to get? Or
I think with a really good GM, when it is being improv, you don't necessarily know.
Okay.
I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah.
Adam looking at me blank's never come up. Not me.
I've never had a good GM. I have no idea.
No, I think that is the case in the D&D campaign with Alec.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, no, I guessed as much. So I quite often get a lift home with Alec, and so I'll sort of, and you know, because I was planning to get into some GMing, I've kind of talked to him a bit more about how it works, and things that I thought were all completely pre-planned. He was like, no, that I just did that on the fly, and we didn't realise. So I think that is the kind of sign of a skilled GM, definitely.
Okay. The players also have to be fair to the GM as well as each other, because it takes effort to set up a campaign or a session or what have you. And if the guy's gone into it, or girl have gone into it and made plans and done the bay around, it's a bit disrespectful then to chuck off and do your own.
We're not getting on that train, but it's called Murder on the Orient Express. No, we've hired horses.
I decided I'd buy a sandwich and I missed the train.
There's got to be, there's got to be some balance there. And we do go along to conventions and what have you. You've got a 2 or 3 hour session, so it is going to be fairly more rigid than a long-term campaign. But yeah, it's all about balance at the end of the day.
Okay, so going on from there, when you're choosing a system to play, what are you looking most at? Are you looking at the lore? Are you looking at the mechanisms? Are you looking at how freeform it can be, materials available? How do you choose the game you want to play?
For me personally, it's with a good GM who will not let the rules get in the way of a good game. It'd be theme,
lore, and
the theme, sort of character I want to play. I want to be James Bond today, or I want to be a rampant.
You want to be James Bond every day. A rampant James Bond.
I want to be a rampaging dwarf with a large axe, or a bounty hunter in space, or whatever.
Okay.
It's
So you're not fussed what the system does or how the dice resolve.
No, because as I said, a good GM won't let that get in the way of it. I don't like games with too many rules and tables and whatever else. It is theme. If I'm with a bunch of people I like, and we've played before, I don't mind really.
Okay,
don't mind.
Just a quick aside on that, with Pathfinder, because I don't really know the difference between Pathfinder and D&D. Was Pathfinder popular because it was fewer tables and fewer rules, or is it very similar?
It was a fait accompli. I was told we're playing Pathfinder. I joined the group and that's what they were playing.
My first session, I don't want to play this.
But we did. The GM was really good at that, and he did like to free flow. Unfortunately, we did have a rules lawyer, and it got to the point where we had to send out messages between games saying, "Listen, guys, it's spoiling the enjoyment. Let's not be about a +2 here, there, or everywhere.
Right,
just let the game flow." But
Lloyd asked for feedback after GMing.
I asked for polite feedback.
Not necessarily.
He's just fishing for compliments, really.
Attention whoring GM over there. So Lloyd,
as a GM to that.
Mechanisms and lore. I know that you were playing a lot of X-Wing.
Yeah.
Some Imperial Assault, some Star Wars
International
Armada.
X-Wing.
International X-Wing celebrity.
Well, yeah, that's pushing
in your own mind.
It's not a high,
Limerick is not international, by the way. Limerick's its own little state.
I went to Scotland. That was a proper country.
Was it that when you, and this is just in my head, so you can tell me if I'm completely wrong, I felt like if you play games like that, you get more into the lore, you look at who the characters are, look at the backstory and things like that, just automatically, even though they are more mechanical games. Is that what brought you into wanting to Star Wars RPG?
Not at all.
Brilliant.
Because I don't care for Star Wars. I haven't liked Star Wars in 20 years. I'm not.
All you do is play the last year and a half.
It's
only Star Wars games.
FFG have sent out a lot of Star Wars games that happen to be really good.
Okay.
So it's not even incidental. It's opposing forces. I play it and I don't care about the lore. It's bizarre, I know. I had got into, so I've only ever played 3.
Does anyone else, is that impossible? I'm not caring about the lore.
If you remember Eurogames, right? Eurogames.
If you see, all of his kind of painted Imperial Assault minis that we use sometimes in campaigns, and
it's some great cognitive dissonance.
Admittedly, I think Shireen's, but like all of the kind of Lego Millennium Falcon and everything. This is not the habitation of somebody who doesn't like
when
Star
you walk
Wars.
in your house, is there like a lightsaber noise?
Okay, firstly, that's Star Trek.
Is it? Oh, it's the doors. I thought it was lightsabers going.
So, Stephen, right, I would like to point out I'm not the biggest nerd in my house. It's definitely Shireen.
Do you live at Ronan?
I've only ever played 3 role-playing games. So it's GURPS with Adam, the FFG Star Wars game with Adam and G, and the D&D game with Adam.
G, who's our producer for the day, by the way. Hey, G.
This is why we sound so much clearer and more intelligent.
Because we're in a studio.
I can improve the audio quality. Shame about the content.
Blame the sound engineer.
Excuse me, talent only on the mics, please. I'm getting hand gestures. It took me a while to get into it, but I was enjoying the story. I was enjoying spending time with everybody and the kind of the collaborative storytelling elements of it. The things I was finding frustrating initially, and I think to an extent still continues, is as somebody who's played so many games, the D&D system still feels slightly clunky. That, for example, you might have spent all this time increasing a specific attribute, let's say deception, for example, but you're still rolling a d20, and great, you can add 4 or 5 to it, but on a d20 it's an enormous range of outcomes. And so you go, oh cool, well I've rolled a 3, so I add my enormous skill to it and I have an 8. Have I succeeded with an 8 out of 20? And so that felt a bit
fall
clunky.
out of bed this morning.
Yeah, pretty much. So it did feel like an old system.
Right.
And obviously, from what I gathered, the system is more refined than it ever has been in the past. But still, to me, coming from Eurogames, the D20 system felt really kind of clunky and dated. So sort of fishing around and trying to find something else to experiment with. The Star Wars game, because it's from FFG, I kind of trusted that it had that level of development and publishing behind it. To play it is easy because you just go to everyone, right, we're in Star Wars, you're a scoundrel, you're a pirate, you're a Jedi, cool. And everyone's like, alright, fine, I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's that easy to just jump in. There's not, books of history. Adam, over to you.
We're off to sail around the Isle of Wight in a pinnace.
I've remembered why I wasn't allowed on for 2 years.
Yeah, to answer the question that was back there somewhere. So I love D&D for the lore because it's something I was vaguely familiar with from things like Waterdeep. I like a kind of a standard kind of
D&D lore. I know they're trying hard
but
now.
Like a kind of Tolkien-esque fantasy setting.
Well, Tolkien is not D&D, Adam.
Tolkien-esque.
And let's not have a fight on air.
Tolkien-esque. But that kind of classic dwarves and elves and orcs fantasy setting. Brilliant. But as Lloyd says, the D20 system does put these massive swings in it where you don't feel rewarded for having learned to do something well. So that was why I then, having done a bit of GURPS, I went back to that and thought, if I want something that works
What's the
from
dice
a
system in
gamer's
GURPS?
point of view, it's a 3d6.
Okay.
So you have a similar range. You can roll from 2 to 18 and you're trying to roll under a skill level.
3 to 18, by the way, Adam. But
3 to 18?
I was doing
counting
to help you, but you weren't looking.
But
never
obviously,
GM me.
but there is a very definite peak in there.
Yeah.
And so you can say, okay, if my skill level is
Euro
over 10,
gamer, probability
then
fee.
exactly.
I need a bell curve on
That's
this.
why. That's why I was like, oh, I get this because I'm a Eurogamer and I can see the bell curve and I can see that if the skill level was over 10, I'm very significantly increasing my chances of succeeding
None of
in
us
this.
should be allowed to breed, should we?
6 spawn over here between us.
We've done our bit for the human race.
or otherwise.
So yeah, like the two sort of D&D, I liked a lore setting that I knew, and I thought, yeah, this is easy to jump into. It's easy to make a character because you just say, okay, he is a half-orc barbarian who used to be a sailor. I know what that is. I know how that works, and with those 3 decisions and a few numbers, that's my character made.
Yeah.
GURPS works, to my mind, much better mechanically, but it's a lot harder to write and to start, and you kind of have to send people all of your kind of backstory and say this is everything that's possible, and then sit down with them, and it's a points-based character creation, so it's quite a complex process, but mechanically is more rewarding and does mean that the probabilities kind of make sense, that if you're good at something, yes, it can still go terribly wrong if you get really bad luck, but the better you are at it, it increases the chances of doing well at that thing.
So that is what frustrates me a lot of the time about board games, is that you are completely and utterly at the mercy of dice. And you may have the answer. I mean, let's just take it right back to its most basic level in Cluedo. You may know who did it, but be stuck over the other side of the board and trying to race and come across. And then someone else can do, throw a couple of high dice rolls and they're in. And it's like, I feel cheated then.
We try to avoid those games.
What, Cluedo?
Yes, you do.
But you get my point about, I think RPGing gives you so much more leeway. And one of
I think if you use because you're not measuring it.
Yeah, well, the GM said, listen, unless you do something really, really stupid, you're probably not going to die. And it doesn't have that absolute strict set of rules.
It's hard to feel cheated.
You are invested in the character. You're going to play the game then, no pun intended. You're going to go along with it because you know the parameters within which you're operating.
Here's something I thought about when we were playing the Star Wars game the other day. So in the Star Wars game, there's no numbers on the dice. You get successes and you get fails.
Success, fail, threats, advantage.
When you roll, you can be successful or not to a various degree, but also you can get an advantage for other symbols on the dice, and it's not just down to numbers. And I thought it was quite, what I did like about the system was those advantage stuff gave you role-playing moments. So even as the player, I felt like you've got 2 advantages, what do you want to do with it? And then rather than Eurogaming it and going 2 advantages exactly, I can get a 2. I was just trying to think of something my character could do, right? It was like, well, I'm a scholar, so I'd know about these runes, and maybe I'd know a back door or whatever like that. And Lloyd was cool. Like, yeah, that sounds plausible. Okay, he goes to the advantage. I went, that's not an advantage. We've got that already. How to be mean to your games master. So it took away that swinging in the probability. One thing I wanted to put to Steve was, do you think that GMs who have grown up with the swingier dice system, because obviously FFG have evolved this for a reason, that people complain about swinging, have learned to GM around it, and it's affected the way that they GM the game, as in, right, well, don't worry about dice roll. Because when we played, and maybe it's because we're not that into RPG games, it was what the dice roll, there you go, there's your result, what can we do make out of this?
Yeah, I think the GM roll, I mean, they're not going to cheat. Okay, so they're going to take the result.
You're not?
I used the term "we" very loosely, and I said I haven't GM'd yet until next year. So no, they're not going to cheat, and they're going to take it as runs, but they use that as part of the narrative. So then they themselves have to almost think on their feet as well. Say, right, okay, well they need to achieve that task in order to get to Temple of whatever, or they need to get there. So then the GM needs to do his own thinking then as well about, right, I need to give them a way out of this, because if they get to a dead end, well, it's in no one's interest, is it?
In our game the other day, we were there were some pits that you could fall in, and one of us fell in and got out
Spoiler
again.
alert.
We looked around the other pits, whatever. We looked around the other pits, and there was an injured wolf, which apparently we found out afterwards. Lloyd, there was one sentence of, you found an injured wolf. We spent about half an hour with G coming out with more and more absurd ways to get in, tranquilise this wolf, and get back at it without getting savaged by this injured wolf, right? So I feel Lloyd going, please move on. Please move on. But eventually it all went wrong and it attacked G, and G killed it and skinned it and wore it, at which point the other player went, we could have used stun on our guns. It must be frustrating GM and stuff like that.
Lead a horse to
Yeah. And he decided, rather than holding, I think, whatever it was, rather than holding the medicine, he did hold his medicine and then dropped it when the wolf attacked him, and the only thing he had on was a lightsaber, so drew a lightsaber and just murdered the wolf. And he spent 20 minutes trying to rescue it, and in the end he's like, I'll just kill it with a sword, it's fine.
I just kind of...
But as long as the process is entertaining.
Yeah, which
we were sitting there looking at you going, what?
It was
what
hilarious from my side, where I say I've got like a one sentence explanation of like, there is an injured wolf in a hole, and that's everything I had, and I was like, cool, we're going with it, let's make this enormously elaborate scene, let's pick up some stats for a wolf because you've decided to have combat with it.
I mean, none of us want to be slaves to the dice roll, but it is part of the fun, isn't it? I mean, how uptight and tense do you get when you're rolling the dice and you have to hit this, or how disappointed do you get? Think, well, I know I do anyway.
Or in G's case, how upset do you get when you accidentally murder something?
Accidentally with your lightsaber and then skin it accidentally.
Okay,
well, at that point the damage was done.
So as we're talking about GMing, let's just delve deeper into there. When you are GMing, level of preparation you feel that you have to do?
Very little.
Okay. Maps and props. Do you consider the group balance that you're playing with? Aids, do you use online programs to keep track of things and characters and to share information easily? Even something as easy as Dropbox, you can just Dropbox thing and everyone then has access to it.
Yeah. So we played on Monday and we were setting out on a new adventure. So I've been using a lot of the FFG pre-written adventures just because as a new GM it helps a lot. It gives you a lot of structure and a lot of the information. And I think the parts where I would probably be weakest at is when you walk into a new room or a new area describing the entire scenario. It doesn't instinctively come to me. So FFG provide an awful lot of that. What I struggle with is finding the time in the weeks leading up to the sessions to actually do any of the reading. I'm horrific at it. So the idea of using a lot of these pre-written adventures, I say, was to save me a lot of the improv while I get the hang of GMing. But what happens instead is I panic read 5 or 10 pages, generally while everyone's making tea and sitting down, and then we just improv it anyway because I haven't done the reading. So yes, there should be a lot of prep potentially for GM. That is an area I am very poor at.
Let's move on to someone possibly more professional in this regard. Adam. Adam's looking like he's not more professional in this regard.
No, not more professional. Busier. Definitely busier. The reason I wanted to GM was because I like writing and I like kind of world creation. For like the sci-fi setting, I did an enormous amount of prep. Literally, this huge kind of timeline and all the aliens and their civilization and how they evolved.
Come on, tell us their names.
They're the
There's a family
quadrabrax. I had kind of done a lot of this work and drawn up maps and kind of got stuff. I don't really have props for the players. I certainly had a couple of maps, so I would sort of initially describe, and then like they were on a space station at one point, and when they got to a console, I was like, well, here's what you can see on the console, and this shows you like what's in the station and where things are. I'd done more preparation for that than the other campaign that I ran, the Druidic one, and I don't know that it ran better as a result. I think if you're creating your own world, you have to do a certain amount of work in advance, because
I really, really hope so.
Yeah, because otherwise
You're in
this world is
Adam
flick, flick,
world. You all have long hair and a beard.
but like
That sounds like the scariest one.
And the prettiest.
you have to have enough there so that when players say, oh, we want to go and do whatever, then you can improv because you know the setting and you know the kind of things that can happen. I think that if you sit down and you write out very, very, very detailed things and say, if as you walk down this corridor, precisely this thing will happen, and there's this percentage of certain things, there it's a little frustrating for the players because you spend a lot of time just flicking through your notes and saying, oh, this, okay, I roll this die. But it's frustrating as a GM as well. I found that was slightly less enjoyable if you've done too much prep. Because then all you're doing is just
Lloyd shaped,
Lloyd's
completely puzzled. Too much.
Sorry, you never need to find out, Lloyd. It means that when players do something more interesting and exciting, you can then kind of think, oh, that's brilliant, but I'm disappointed because I spent an hour like drawing up random event tables and now I don't get to use them. So it's
This family tree wasted.
Yeah, because you just killed the guy as soon as you met him. Doesn't matter.
Never have these children.
Did you even ask his name?
Steve, for you coming into Call of Cthulhu, how much prep are you thinking of doing? How much do your GMs do?
Okay, there's the want to do it, and there's the real life
that's
universe
life.
as well.
That's my
So-
excuse. That's
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and this is a serious point because it is why I haven't done it to date, because I don't want to let the team down, if you like. I don't want it to come along and just be searching through books. People give up their time, we come together and we want to enjoy that time. You know, when it's run well, we do enjoy it. I would say you need a balance. I mean, the guys touched on it perfectly. You know, Adam was saying you don't want to go away and spend a whole week doing it and then only to find out that they turn left instead of right. But I just turn the A4 round. So I did that physically. The people on the podcast can't
good
see
radio.
what I just did. Yeah. So Marcel radio.
I'm going to be disappointed if you don't actually speak in some sort of Chthonian tongue by this time next year. Humans.
Boom, chicka, wow, wow. Is that right?
So, aids and programs, tech, anyone?
So
who's
FFG is
thought about
really good for maps, for printouts of everything. So basically everything is available online that you could
Okay.
ever want to print out and fill out. There's encyclopedias of ships and everything available to you.
Well, for Star Wars, there definitely
Absolutely.
is. And lots of corrections, I
Yes,
imagine.
absolutely. It's kind of the best and the worst thing in the Star Wars world because, I say, it's easy to set the world because like the first place we went to is like
I'm just thinking we need to find a real Star Wars expert and insert them into Lloyd's campaign.
oh no, we have some. Nathan is, yeah.
17 years before its invention date, I think not.
This one's a prototype.
Ronan,
You are a good GM.
are you talking about yourself?
But one of the first places we went to was Tatooine, and so you go right. So you land on Tatooine, and it's a different town, but everyone's like, "Yeah, cool, Tatooine, got it, done." And so for that side, it's really easy. And then FFG
How many
provides
sons?
provides
Take levels?
Wait, 6.
You're right, Ronan.
It does provide genuinely all of this information. Like the core book is basically an encyclopedia for the Star Wars universe, to the extent that we've just gone to a new
These
location.
are things that we buy and read, right? There's
Yeah,
a reason
absolutely.
why.
And so we've just gone to a new location in our game, and literally, like, they're like, "What's the population of this place?" I'm like, "It is 300,000," because I have that.
Oh, wow.
And it's the best and the worst thing because all of that information is available, but it also, for me, it feels slightly restrictive in that you can't just go, "I just made an answer up, it's this," because someone can, not that they would, I think, in our group, but somebody can and go, "Well, do you know what, it's not." Because I looked it up. Ronan's raising his hand. He would. You are not invited back. So I think FFG is really good for what we have played is the introductory game. So it's very good for going, here are some maps to give you an idea of what this looks like. Here are lots of descriptions of things. Like if you end up taking a ship, this is what your ship looks like. Here are deck plans for it so you can walk around it. So it's really good in that regard. I have had fun kind of throwing props in as well. So in our last one, we had just some little crates and things because we were having a shootout, and I had them nearby, so it was easy to just throw them on the table and go, cool, these people are hiding behind these crates. G and I have a tendency to get carried away occasionally. So our very first game session, when everyone made tea, we brought out some blue milk. And so everyone could have blue milk. That was not as popular as we thought it was going to be.
No, I couldn't bring myself to drink it.
It looks awful.
Yeah.
So I think there are some. The blue milk maybe is a step far, but adding small props, using figures from Imperial Assault, things like that, are really easy again, just to kind of immerse people in the world. But I think it's very group dependent. There are plenty of games where people might not use figures at all, and it's all theatre of the mind. For me, because I'm newer to the systems and I'm newer to role-playing as a whole, I find it easy to go, cool, this is what your figure looks like, this is what the world looks like, here's a map of where you're walking around. But it's just personal preference. There's not, I don't think, a right or wrong answer.
Any online resources or anything like that?
No, because I hate the modern world. I really,
okay, that's your answer. Thanks.
Nothing more complicated than pen and paper and dice.
Well, absolutely.
That's like,
pencil and paper.
That would
Pencil and
absolutely be
paper
on
and
Adam's
dice,
gravestone. I hated the modern world. I'm glad to be done with all of it.
Free Mr. Boiro.
Yeah, I honestly books and pen and paper and dice, and that's all I use really. And like Word for drawing out maps so I can print them out and go, this is what it looks like.
Okay.
But I mean, certainly Alec has used dungeon creation online.
Oh, stuff online. Oh yeah. And D&D 5th edition is.
It's almost like it's a whole rabbit hole that you can just disappear down into.
But D&D 5th edition, part of it
all kinds of
is.
things.
Yeah, imagine listening to podcasts like role playing games.
Perish the thought. We listen to that.
At least 7 people, including the 4 here, and hopefully G. So, but D&D 5th edition are very much pushing it. It seems they've got a little bit smarter with the online part of as everything is an online focus, and they're trying to get you to upload your characters and upload your stories and upload campaigns and upload maps so that other people can use them and see them and take a more shared experience. So I think people are getting smarter. Steve, for someone considering going back to GMing, any pitfalls or traps that you're remembering or you've discovered or other GMs have told you about?
Well, for me and my personal style and the way I like to play gaming is not to be a slave to the rules. I think they're there to help you, not to hinder you, tell the story and help you enjoy yourself. As we were talking about earlier on about the tabletop games, and you like the competitive nature of it and learning the rules and almost beating the system, if you like. And whereas I just don't like that getting in the way of RPGs. You got to do your homework. Let the players enjoy. It's about enjoyment, isn't it, at the end of the day? We're all there to enjoy ourselves and have a bit of fun. Don't let the rules book get in the way of that.
Cool. Lloyd? Any pitfalls or traps you found going into it for the first time?
Having to prep is hard work, it turns out.
We've discovered that.
No, as I say, I mean, it's mostly just a case of going along with it. For me, initially, as I say, it was very intentionally kind of hanging back as a character because I didn't feel necessarily comfortable but confident role-playing. And it took me a while to get to that point. And I think having a group that are happy to kind of almost carry you along for those first couple of games, having a GM that will allow you to find your feet, helps.
So is your tip to
have better friends?
Listen to better podcasts. Your tip, and it sounds obvious, play first. Play, learn, have a good GM, try and pick up tips. Yeah,
definitely.
I think that sounds kind of obvious though, doesn't it? Anything else?
We're all cringing that you asked that question, Ronan.
I was hoping for insight from the other side of the table here.
One kind of pitfall is if you have players who are fairly new to it and you're GMing for newer players, which was my first time GMing, was, as I said, with people who were sort of barely gamers and certainly not role players. They had very different expectations and very different levels of buy-in. And so there it's quite a challenge to try and kind of keep things moving along and keep the story going so that the people who aren't enjoying it quite so much just sort of don't feel that they're being held back, but that others don't feel that they're being just rushed along and get to kind of think about stuff and make decisions. And I think it's one of the things that can be the most fraught with any role-playing game. One of the things that can cause difficulty is if there are some people who are very analytical and want to sort of say, okay, what's every single possible way that this scenario could play out, and what should we think about, and how do we approach this? And somebody else who's just like, I only care about the story. Let's just keep moving. Let's just go and see what happens. And so I think as a GM, you do have a role in managing that and managing the pacing and everybody's expectations.
Is a balance of the personalities more important then than it would be like in a tabletop game whereby you're all down, there's rules, you're following instructions,
Absolutely.
you have to find that balance. So maybe GM for an established role-playing group, maybe? that know each other and know each other's style, or?
Yeah, I think that's certainly the other experience I have of GMing, aside from doing it with sort of non-gaming friends, was doing a session with the group who played D&D, and it was the same world that I tried, and I did find there that I was having to do a lot less because they were experienced players and 2 GMs as well. So there it becomes much easier and more collaborative,
because you know that they know what they're doing.
They're judging you as well.
Some very critical notes.
Did you email
but it's
them
fine because I wasn't fishing for compliments, so I did that.
But I think in where we said each individual game is a collaborative effort between the GM and the players, I think playing the game as a whole is as well. So if there is, at the end of a session, you might say, how was it? Is there things you'd rather be doing? Are we, if your characters just want to be charging into combat and murdering things, are we spending way too long on politics, things like that? Mm-hmm. You shape the game to what your group wants. So if your group wants to be running around and exploring, then there's no point having them spend 3 months doing something else.
I'm still laughing a little bit that Steve said that both his characters are all about combat, and yet his favourite game was we just sat around chatting. There wasn't the one with dice roll. There was
also, players don't know what they want.
It is that mix of the group. It'd have to be heavily qualified. I like go around killing people because
you want to know that they're the right people.
There has to be an appropriate time, and it's that choice of who to kill and when that's the important thing.
I think what you enjoy is not the killing people, is having the power to kill the people.
Exactly, you got it. You nailed me. You absolutely nailed me.
All right, so in terms of finding a group, and from both sides, GM and playing, length of campaign, because in my head back a long time ago, I always thought campaign was 5 years. You go from the tavern meeting to challenging the gods. I talked in that episode recently about Buying Faith, where it's a self-contained campaign, 8 to 12 scenarios, and that was almost, I hadn't really thought of it. I hadn't thought of Up Against the World. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds a lot more doable, right? We can meet up 10 times and be done, rather than let's commit to this for the next 17 years. It would be amazing. I'm sure there'll be incredible stories, but quite tough to do. So length of campaigns, when you're considering it, the idea of one-shots, the idea of short campaigns, the idea of actually getting your real teeth into a long one with the same group. Any thoughts about it? Any preferences?
I think the most important thing is just having very clear expectations going in. So when we started the D&D, Alex said, look, I've got this starter pack, which does levels 1 to 3 pretty much. It's going to be maybe 9 or 10 sessions.
9 or 10 sessions to get to level 3?
Yeah.
We're quite rubbish.
I mean, we do. We go.
I mean, just from my expectations from before, like we played, you'd be level 3 by the end of the first or second scenario, easily.
So there he said, look, this is what I've got already. I would love to then keep it going and play more sessions and write more stuff, but that's up to you guys.
Yeah.
And within maybe 3 sessions, we knew.
Kept saying no.
But with that look in your eyes. No.
Within 3 sessions, we were kind of like, yeah, it's a good group. We kind of meshed, well, maybe not 3, maybe 5 sessions. Lloyd was very reticent. but we kind of meshed fairly quickly, and now Alex moving to Lincoln, and so we're like, okay, well, how do we keep this going then via Skype? And because we...
And how long has it been running?
We've done about 25 sessions, and
what level are you
still hugely enjoying it. 5. Yeah, we're level 5.
Is it standard for D&D? Is it?
If you have a campaign where all you want to do is fight, then a GM can just be like, all right, great, we'll just grind monsters over and over and over again, and that builds up XP.
Are you getting XP for non-combat things?
Specific character moments. I don't recall too many times where there's been just story-based XP.
No, he'll do kind of character-based stuff and kind of good role-playing. He'll give us a little bump.
XP for some onion soup once.
Yes.
Oh, God. Let's not go there.
That was when I knew that Lloyd was 100% hooked. that we had gone off thinking that it was fairly safe, and we were stealthing around this village.
Cultists, I seem to
we were kind of skulking around this village, and we didn't want the noisy knight with us, so we left him and Lloyd's character behind in the hut with this one cultist who we captured. And it turned out that, and they were like, oh, we get him to make soup. So we were kind of having this adventure, and of course it wasn't safe, and we ran into all sorts of monsters and stuff.
Just can't leave him alone for 5 minutes.
Meanwhile, entirely unnecessarily, and not in any way part of the story, back in the hut, this guy was making kind of amazing soup, and Lloyd and Chris, who was the other character behind, were like discussing what was in the soup.
And genuinely had a 10-minute sidebar just about how amazing this soup was and how it changed their lives.
I'd have hit him with an axe.
There's definitely a 50-50 split here of people listening going, oh my god, that's awful.
But it went,
and 50% going, wow, that's so good fun. I'm on the awful side, by the way.
It became very filmic, because it meant that we weren't just playing a game, we weren't just like rolling the dice and encountering the thing, we were in a scene, we were having an action scene, and it kept being cross-cut with like this little comedy scene back in the hut.
Yeah, it's like, and now we wipe back to the idiots in the hut.
Okay, the soup has thrown me completely. So, 25 sessions to get to level 5. Back when I did that little bit of designing, I deliberately designed in things where you got XP just for being clever. But for role-playing well, if someone did follow their character, your character might not be combat-based, but you role-played and did well and solved mystery stuff. Here you go, there's some adventure.
We certainly have. There was one where there was an entire castle full of orcs that it was all set up that we fought our way in and did the business, and instead Lloyd disguised himself as... Well, we basically disguised ourselves and just walked in. And we're like, hey, it's fine, we're meant to be here. Strolled through, very quickly killed the main guy, and then Lloyd disguised himself as the main guy, and we strolled back out again.
Did you skin him and wear him in a G styling?
So there we did get some XP, but he was like, but of course you actually didn't see half the castle. I can't reward you for everything. Because there he is sticking a little bit more, I think, to the rules.
I think that was a classic thing of somebody, he's got this enormous castle full of all these things and all these rooms we're going into and exploring, and we were like, we're going here and there, and we're going to have a chat, and then we're leaving.
I hate you. On his behalf.
4 hours of my life.
Guy here comes along and flies us to the end, and then flies us back again. Still level 1. Ding!
One of our games, a Traveller that we played, then if we have a moment of inspiration, whatever, then we get rewarded hero points. Cool. And basically we can use those, if we fail a die roll, we can use it to roll again and things like that. So that's how it's rewarded. Because Traveller is a lot less XP centric.
Are there still levels involved in it as well? Is it?
Do you know what? I'm embarrassed to admit I don't even know, because what you do when you roll the character,
but that's a good thing, isn't it? Because that's taking the rules out of it, and you are just experiencing.
You can do progression of the skills when you roll the characters. You go through, you gain your skills in the creation of the character, and you go through terms and you choose career paths and what have you. But yeah, I'm really embarrassed to know that. I don't.
Call of Cthulhu. There's not levels in that. Is it still the percentage system?
Is it investigator points?
Okay.
Yeah,
so it's not actually levels.
I think that Call of Cthulhu is one of those systems where you know you're going to die, because the more successful you are, you lose sanity points.
Yeah,
and you're gonna end up in a gibbering wreck in the corner somewhere.
Star Wars does the same thing. If there's not specific levels in there, you'll gain XP and it'll allow you to acquire different points and skills and things.
Yes,
but it's not hitting levels. And I think that's probably, personally, I feel like it's a good thing, because you're not just constantly going, I'm miles away from the next level. I'm never.
If then you're creating your own scenario, how do you pitch it?
In terms of XP?
Difficulty. No, in terms of difficulty, and like if...
so for...
Oh, do they just go, he's got 20 hero points?
You won't ever become hugely powerful. Like, you're not going to be running around being, a Darth Vader level character. So
I'm out.
You might have somebody that could potentially play for years. As far as I've read, as I say, we're not anything close to that yet. But you could have a character who plays for years and levels up all the way through and gains all this XP, but still might get killed by a group of stormtroopers if there are too many to deal with.
They're standing very close to them.
Maybe if they're shooting at something else. But it's possible. You might have all these abilities that help you in, I don't know, like bounty hunting, all these kinds of things. But if you get into a combat that is outside of, the scale for getting better at combat isn't enormously steep.
Don't annoy a Wookiee is what you're saying. Okay, so going back then to length of campaign, you've done 25 sessions, you're keen to carry on going?
Absolutely, yeah.
And do you feel you get as much or as a rewarding experience from shorter campaign? If you did a 10-session, very focused campaign, this is the story we're trying to tell. If
it were 10 sessions, I think so. If you knew that was the case, and if there was a very clear and specific story arc, then... I suppose it would be like watching a film rather than watching a TV series. So, specifically these things will happen within it. We have done one shot where another friend wanted to just have a go at DMing for the group, and so said, well, I've got this pre-written and it's just a single episode story. But that
felt like he was herding cats.
But okay, so was the story
he was
quite
trying to just go through the story
cliched?
It didn't resolve really. I mean, I think honestly that was a much less satisfying experience, because what we did over the course of that was build our characters and have lots of conversations between ourselves while he was just out there going, but there's a boat, you need to be on the boat. So
making soup.
Exactly. We got soup to
But
make.
yeah, I think actually that's exactly the point I was going to get to, is that the part for me, what almost the most fun has been the kind of classic stereotype of what you're doing is you're creating in-jokes between your group.
Yeah.
So the soup is now a running joke for us. Braziers are a running joke for us because our main kind of fighting character, the first thing he did when he walked into a room was try to pick up an enormously heavy brazier and throw it at somebody.
Yeah.
And DM's like, sure, try it, go for it.
You burn yourself.
And of course he rolls a natural 20, picks the thing up, and he's like, alright, fine, that was unexpected. Now roll to throw it, and so he fails obviously that as well. But now it kind of becomes this running thing where braziers are now his mortal enemy. And so every time we walk into a room and there's a brazier, we'll just take it out. And when I was saying earlier, and I had my wild magic and my character started casting lightning everywhere, he was like, pick 5 things in the room. And I was like, that minion, not the big guy, the brazier. And I cast lightning at the brazier. But it's that kind of thing. It's just, it's become... I know, everyone does.
No, the big guy was on the feet. This is the purpose of what we're doing.
In my defence, I didn't know what I was going to do before I did it.
Okay, fair enough.
So it's those kind of things. It's building those kind of running jokes, and as a group, then you'll have recurring experiences. And you're essentially building your own tropes, right? And
So in a single session game, we spent 5 hours doing that, and then at the end of it, it was just, that's it now. And
I think in my head, a single session game that I play anytime now would have to be very innovative.
yeah,
It'd have to be something doing very different that's taking me out of my usual exploring I'm going through. I find the jewel, which has to go in the place to finish it off.
Yeah, it's going to be very prescriptive. I think in reality as well, when you do a single game session, it's almost going to be an event that's secondary to another event. So you go into a convention, or you're getting together with a group of friends you haven't seen for a while, and it's just there. And we take it. It's like a snack.
And do you do them? Do you do single sessions?
Yeah. Been to conventions, gone along and
remember
done
we
single
covered that in the
sessions.
intro.
And it's I say that it is almost secondary to whatever else is going on, at the time. It's meeting up with people you haven't seen for a while, or meeting new people, and it's almost like a conduit for doing other things.
How long was your Pathfinder campaign?
Oh, good question. I think we probably ran... Well, when we say campaign, the adventure we did is obviously part of... If we'd say campaign, then that's when we're taking the character from level 0 all the way through to their end. So the campaign isn't over.
Okay.
So we still have the characters now to go on other adventures.
Okay.
But the adventure in and of itself, it was probably about... I'm getting... My memory is awful. Real life gets in the way of having fun, doesn't it? I'd guess about a dozen sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, a dozen sessions.
Did it feel complete over a dozen sessions, or do you? Now you've got that character. Do you want to?
I felt it was the start of something.
Okay.
So you're just getting comfortable with the characters, getting to know them, getting to know the game system itself, getting to know the other players as well, because there were some new players in there. Yeah, we just do it for as long as it's fun, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm assuming you're watching The Walking Dead, or at least read the comic books.
I'm aware of this existence.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
The premise of it was Robert Kirkman, the writer, saying every time he watches a horror film, and it will end, and there's 3 or 4 survivors, and they've made it through and cool. And he's like, but what happens next? And so The Walking Dead was built off of that premise. It's the forever what happens next.
Yeah.
And I think there's an element with an RPG, like you can go through it, and you might have a conclusion, but then there's always what happens next, and that can always potentially bring you back if you want to.
And when you're in a campaign of that length, some way fall in love with your character, love or hate, I guess. When we're talking about other games, whenever they mention RPG elements, all they mean is your character can improve, right? It can go from level 1 to level 2 or get slightly better. And character progression. And for tabletop gamers, for board gamers, stuff like that, when you have that very small amount of progression, people feel like they have ownership of that character and it's getting better and I'm guiding it, especially if there's a branching path, right? And you can become good at swords or good at axes, whatever it might be. And obviously within the board game realm, that's very, very limited. Okay, it's expanding more stuff like Gloomhaven, which is and campaign and legacy games, where it's becoming more that you can develop over multiple sessions and get more ownership. But how important is that sense of ownership and progression in a character for you when you're in the role-playing game? Do you inhabit the space of the character, or is it really it's a cipher that things are happening and really it's me interacting with the people?
I think the character is central, and it's not just the character itself, but how it's the group, isn't it? So it's the progression of the group and how you...
Are you role-playing with each other in character, though? Are you making decisions in-game that your character would, or are you...
yes,
You should
absolutely.
be, certainly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But as I said earlier, the character is you. It's
Nietzschean master.
again, we touched on consistency earlier on as well. So I think, again, a good games master would pull a character up. You're saying, well, hang on a second, if you ever think about it, with a decent group you won't have to do that reminder, but I think on a new group you have to remind them about the this is almost like a real life person, and people do tend to have a level of consistency in their behaviour, and you have to bring that through into the game as well. But to go back to your question about how important is it, very much so. I think the character, you become invested in the character and in the group as well, and it's about growing the group dynamic, problem solving with the group. I think there is definitely a level of ownership there, and it's like an old pair of shoes that slipping back on again, and they're just comfy, and you know what you're doing with them. And then we try new games, a new pair of shoes, and try this out.
If mechanically the character was static, would it make a difference?
No. No, and I think this is why
part, isn't it?
Where you were so surprised earlier that it took so many sessions to get to level 5 in D&D.
Yeah.
It's because those changes are kind of nice, and it's cool when you get there, and I'm excited to get to level 6 because I get double attack, and you're kind of like, okay, I get some more rule stuff.
Yeah.
But that's not the character progression.
Okay.
The character progression is these things happened to him last time. The character progression is Lloyd's character, Vaha, learning more about his past and about kind of where his adversaries are in the world, and it's about making decisions and seeing their outcome, and my character, Dom, kind of setting out for great adventures and to do wonderful things, and quite early on it was going really terribly, and kind of everybody around him dying and just seeing lots of murder and mayhem, and him kind of going, oh, maybe this isn't for me then. How do we make this right? And so it's the character progression is in the fact that you have a history for that character.
At all?
It's not a mechanical thing at all.
80% is not a character thing.
Mostly. 80%. 80% is not a character thing.
There's a Eurogamer whose percentages it.
Learning some new spells and kind of getting extra abilities is nice, and it does mean that you're then not as easy victim to dice.
Is there role-playing opportunities presented by your progression as a character? For example, let's say a level 7 warrior walking into a town is different to a level 1 warrior walking into a town, so you probably have slightly nicer sword and armour, and people would treat you differently. Do people GM that and play it very well, that actually now you've got some standing, you've actually done
in
something?
elements, although I think the level we're at was still fairly lowly, all things considered. I personally, because the way that my character is built and the kind of backstory of him is that, I think I might have mentioned earlier, is that his magic is a sort of an unknown thing. Like, he doesn't know how it came about, he doesn't know the origins of it.
Yeah.
And so I always roleplay it that when I learn a new spell, as a player, I'll research the spells, decide which one I'm going to go ahead with, let the GM know, let the team know. The first time my character does it, he has no idea what it does. And so we're just walking in like, a thing happened. Ooh, I murdered some people. I can't remember the name of the spell. What's the thunder one?
Shatter,
yes. So, as its name implies, so it basically creates a wall of noise in a sort of spherical area.
Yeah.
And the first time we did it, we were in a cave. And we walked into a room, and there were a whole bunch of people attacked one of our characters, and was like, cool, cast shatter on them.
That's louder than
at which point every single thing around us just
everything
piled
in the
up.
area up. And they were like, what did you do? It was like, he didn't know what he was going to do. It's like, he woke up this morning, he was like, I feel like if I do this will happen.
I think,
and that's so it's kind of building the mechanical way the game works into a character.
You can also build in backstories to your campaigns and know there is a theme there, an underlying theme in the background, and then you're aware as a character that you will need to progress and grow your skills and in order to address that theme, and it keep coming dipping in and out of the story. And it could be sort of like parallel stories running around. One's the event that you have here and now, and there's also about the looking forward, and I want to progress, and progress just say change. It's not necessarily moving up the league tables, but it's just change and get new skills in order to this underlying theme that is dominated through all the stories as you go through.
Good GMing is taking the feedback from the character changes,
and
absolutely, weaving that back into the story and giving it. And this is that's part of the natural growth of a good role-playing group. And a lot of the satisfaction seems to me, because when you guys are talking, it's character moments that are fed back, and maybe times when you feel like you've role-played your character well.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to, I rolled a 20 and therefore the spear hit the dragon in the eye. It's actually, I did what I thought my character should do.
Yeah.
So I tried to do it a little bit when I had a character that was very physically weak.
But you role-played as an alpha character, which was shocking.
I tried not to, but they were dithering a bit.
That's who you want to be.
He was like, guys, come on, we've got stuff to do. Let's pack it up and move up.
I don't want to be, but am. Then we got to 10 because I was trying to hang back because I was physically weak, but I was trying to hang back to the combat. And then when we got to the place where this person who's important to me was in danger, I fired straight in. And I went, no, I'm just trying to straight in. This person's in danger. I want to do it. And I ended up dying. But actually, I was quite satisfied. Like, I think that's what my character would have done. Even though it was clearly a stupid thing to do.
But yeah, absolutely. Those are the moments that add to it. And I think the first time we ran the Star Wars game, playing the other introductory game, the Age of the Empire one, Adam was in that situation where he was given a pre-created character, but played entirely in the spirit of it. And so it was doing things that weren't, by a long shot, the best thing to do, but it was fitting for the character. And that really added to the kind of feel of it, and it made it feel much more natural.
Right, yeah. There's the... I believe, and this is a bit of a spoiler for Seafall, so I skip forward a minute or two.
Or just don't play
Don't play Seafall.
Seafall, 10 seconds for Steve, is a
Gee, did you want to jump in for a
a
second?
legacy role-playing, a legacy tabletop game whereby...
It's a
things
tabletop
you do-
game. I won't be playing it. You can carry on.
I'm telling you quick. It's where things you do in game permanently change the game.
Okay.
So there's new areas, or there's new stickers, you rip up cards and stuff. So my understanding is you play the intro game, and everyone chooses the character they're going to be for this whole campaign. Like, I want to be this person, I want to be that person with a bit.
And it's
at
no
the
more
end,
than you're just choosing a picture, but you kind of go through all the pictures like this is the one I like most, the one I...
because you know you're
fix my
setting off for
character.
like a 20 game campaign. This is
Yeah.
40, 50 hours of gameplay, and at the very end of the intro game, you tear up that character and you become their child or something like that, right?
And so you instantly
No one
get,
knows.
what's the sixth best choice available to you? Like,
The top 5 have gone. One of many things wrong with
absolutely.
Editor's
set
note.
the
At this
mood
point,
for it.
Steve left.
it. Exit right.
So there are 3 of us here that have started Seafall campaigns. This is off topic, bear with me. None of us have finished the Seafall.
It was, it's a famous flop of a game in the last couple of years. And I'm sorry, Steve, but I was talking to Simon about it last night, and he was saying, I think it's quite interesting. It's something quite strange with regards to structured and free flow campaigns in role playing. It actually triggered my thoughts. He said in Pandemic Legacy, which is a similar game, it's much more structured. The scenario is set for you, so you know in June this is going to happen, August this is going to happen, September this is going to happen. In
July is
Seafall,
a mystery.
nothing happens in July.
It's holiday month.
We laid on the beach, watched the bodies wash up.
I can't spoil that for you. But in Seafall, it's more freeform what comes out, and therefore it's more of a jumbled narrative, so it doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
Is there a risk of that when you're role playing? Is that if the GM lets it go too loose, you can lose the narrative structure of a campaign?
No, because again,
It could be anything.
the narrative is about the characters, and so the
Okay.
characters are still developing. And if there's a big story and there's something that the GM needs to get you to, then if you go to the wrong place, then they'll just sort of drop
Do what
hints
Steve said, just
and-
change the
and
map
kind of-
and make it the right place.
Well, exactly.
There are a
Yeah,
number
yeah.
of things. Either this big event can happen, and you know what, maybe you miss it. Maybe
Yeah.
there's this cataclysmic war
That's
and it turns
happening
out you were
elsewhere.
off collecting wheat or something,
Yeah.
and that's fine. That's down to you.
I would love that for a role-playing game with me, is that actually what I'm doing, there are other stories going on.
Yeah,
Doesn't
exactly.
matter.
There are
You
all
can
these things occurring in the
interact with them.
background, and
Yeah.
if you go and get involved in it, that's fine. That's down to you. If you don't get involved in it, something worse may happen.
Yeah.
and that's
Or better.
again, it's a choice you make.
Who knows?
It's not the way we
Again,
act.
I think if the players do become too self-indulgent, then it does all grind to a halt, and you're not actually there
maybe
to play
why
the
I can't
game.
get
And
on
it's
with them.
sorry.
It's maybe why I can't get on with them. I can't say I can't get on with them. I want to. If I was going to do it, I want to commit to it and actually go into campaign and really, really go. So we're kind of getting to winding up a little bit. I wanted to ask you about your favourite role-playing game moments, whether they be sessions or something you've done with a character, whatever it might be. That
It's
you
really
went,
easy for me to answer
This
that.
is ding. This is.
So, and I think no, it's actually
It better not
but
be
I
soup
think-
or blue milk.
Soup's pretty close.
Adam, I think, will know exactly what it is. So in it's a very, very minor spoiler for the D&D intro game.
Okay.
But there is a goblin in there who you kind of come across. You know, some parties will just murder him on their way through, and some parties will stop and talk to him. And his name is Droop. His tiny for a goblin is completely useless in every regard, but quite a lot of parties do tend to just adopt him.
Yeah.
Right? And he becomes a team pet of some variety. For us, we gave him every magical item we could find. We taught him everything we could get him to do.
Yeah.
He ended up saving our lives on 4 or 5
Several
occasions.
occasions, yeah.
Yeah, just he would wander in and be like, "I do a thing," and it would just save us entirely. And as we were progressing, and I think Alec had dropped a couple of hints to it that he was progressing as well, but from such a low level.
Yeah.
As we were progressing up and encountering more and more things, he was gonna die, right?
Oh.
Because it was out of his weight category. Right? So we kind of decided to retire him, and we got him a job, and he works as a cook in a local
In the inn, in the
that's named
Heroes
after us,
Inn.
in fact, yeah.
Heroes Arms.
I hope it's not called the Heroes Arms.
It
It is called the Heroes Arms.
in
It's
our
named
honour.
after us.
Yeah.
You have names.
we saved Fandolin.
And so this minor character who is, you know, a throwaway item, but it's an opportunity for a learner group to, you know, pick him up as a team pet or whatever it is and interact with him and have him do anything. So we kind of decided that he was going to go and do this job instead, and he would stop adventuring with us, but we would have him there and we would go and visit every time we passed through and those kinds of things. And we had this kind of emotional goodbye. And so it was this probably like 10 or 15 minute scene where I was all just kind of chatting with Droop, which is our GM doing a very silly voice because he decided at that moment that was going to be the voice for it, and then obviously it's canon. And so it's this kind of long emotional goodbye.
Heroes.
Exactly.
Looked after me.
Provided all the things he needed and gave him I gave him like 95% of the money I had to set him up, and left him with the wand that we'd found somewhere. It was like, if anything ever comes to you, if anything scary's happened, you've got the wand nearby and you've got your boots so you can run away.
You're talking about that, look him in the eye. I'm starting to tear up here.
But it was this enormous like 15-minute thing. For this
Suck it in, bro.
for this completely disposable NPC that had just kind of followed us around for all this time.
That was really touching.
And that was the point where all of us at a group were a little bit like, do we need a couple of minutes?
So follow that, lads. And Adam, you can't use Droop. Steve.
Mine.
Adam never liked Droop.
Mine wouldn't be sort of game time, but it would be after getting back into RPGs last year after 30 years away. So after the first Pathfinder session, after the first Traveller session, just sat back and I thought, do you know what? I really enjoyed that. And I'm so glad I'm back into it. Because I've been collecting in the teens. Once I found eBay 15, 20 years ago or whatever, I've been collecting RPGs for years and years and years, extensively. So I have a huge collection.
Almost a room full of
my man
RPG
cave
stuff.
is full up of RPG stuff. So I'd be reading it. And then to actually get back into playing, I was just so delighted that my collection wasn't going to go to waste. It was a relief, I think.
At least 1% of it was going to get something.
So really getting back into it, I think, the bit I've enjoyed the most.
I want one cool Traveller moment, because we talked a lot about fantasy games. I want a cool sci-fi. We're going to let Adam talk and you go on. Think of something.
Okay, come on. I'm going to have to make something up now.
Okay.
So I'd say my favourite moment was, it was kind of a tipping point when it was kind of that sort of realisation of having to play the character and thinking, oh, okay, this is how it works, and also of just a moment of random chance that made everything come together, which was when one of our party had an encounter which was had been kind of semi-scripted. He ran into somebody who said, oh, can you go and do this little side quest?
Go on, tell us what it was. Go on, tell us.
All right, but it's a spoiler if anybody's playing the 5th edition box, but it's a very tiny one. So he'd been sent to go and exchange something with a banshee. He had to take an item to this banshee in order to get some information. So his character is very kind of respectful, and he'd gone in and it all gone very well. He kind of went in and had this conversation, and everything worked out exactly as it was supposed to. However, then kind of we'd seen all of this happen, and we'd seen Jason and Alec have this conversation and see it all work. And then at the end of it, Alec said, okay, so what do the rest of you do? We went, oh, okay, so what did we see? And he said, well, he just went into the hut and the door slammed behind him. I was like, oh, well, he's our friend.
Yeah.
I guess we'd help him.
Charge in.
I'll try and force the door. And it was a magically closed door.
Right.
So he was like, well, I guess you can try it. So, of course, I rolled a natural 20. At which point the door bursts open, the banshee goes into a flying rage, and we then spent about an hour and a half fighting off this horde of undead that she raised to punish us.
Lots of bloody idiots.
So, if it had been a board game, it would have been the worst possible thing to do. It was such a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
But in a role-playing game, it was absolutely the right thing to do, because it was how the character would react to his friend being in danger. And I think that was just that moment where you realise that duality of, this is what I know as a gamer, this is, I've just seen this whole conversation with Jason, I've seen it's gone brilliantly, and he's about to turn around and leave, but as a character I'm having to take the other actions, and that then creates the story. And so I think that was the real memorable moment.
Do people ever think about, for example, the GM taking Jason outside and having that conversation and leaving him there, walking back in and going, right, the door slammed closed behind him, what'd you do?
We've had a couple of those, but in some ways it's more satisfying to know as a player.
To feel smart, to be like, hold on, I don't know that.
I think it depends on the situation, but I think there's a trust element, right? If you trust your players, that they will still react in character to what their character knows, because there is a difference between what your character knows and what your players know.
Yeah. I invent an iPhone.
Exactly, yeah. So if you trust your players to act based on what their character knows, then you get a much more rewarding experience, because everyone is being honest about it.
Yeah, okay.
It's that integrity, isn't it, of what you're playing?
Yeah, exactly. I think the classic example is kind of like, okay, there's a crate, and before we open it, we're going to check it for traps. And you roll a 2. And so your DM says, you don't find any traps.
And the worst thing you do is go, I'm going to check it for traps as well.
Yeah. Whereas, of course, what you have to do is say, brilliant, no traps, and open it, and then, of course, it explodes in your face. That's the integrity, exactly, is buying into the story.
Yeah, more reasons why I haven't been playing them.
Yeah, 7 people are going, no, I'm going to check it for traps.
I cast shatter at it.
If in
Steve,
doubt,
have you got a cool sci-fi moment?
Powers of recollection of the other guys are just absolutely astounding me.
Well, it's not that long.
Don't you have jobs and families and stuff? Again, another body question. I think it's more the when you get toward the end of an adventure, you start joining up all the dots.
Okay.
And you have those moments.
What's going on.
And light bulb goes on. Yeah. So our traveller GM is incredibly good at doing that. And we actually sit around as a group, smile at each other, going, it makes sense now. Yeah, I mean, I'm just enjoying the ride. So
Sounds like you're very chilled at the back, relaxing the whole time.
Yeah.
And then if something needs killing, you kill it.
Anybody
and then
need hitting?
we'll be in. Yeah.
it's really fun as a GM though to just seed ideas,
Yeah.
knowing that that might not come up for a month, 3 months, a year down the line, and just kind of putting in there, knowing realistically from the player side that the players will almost certainly forget, but it's in there. They reacted to it. It was a thing.
some G.R.R. Martin foreshadowing going on over there. Okay, what next in role-playing games for you guys? Steve, what's moving on to? I mean, you touched on it already. But...
Yeah, so get into Cthulhu. Carry on playing Traveller, get back into Pathfinder, and the 7th edition Cthulhu, I got so much to read through. I literally have a 1.5 tall stack of books beside my bed to read through. I think I might just stick with the 5-minute, easy intro guide, Cthulhu one you were talking about. But I'm looking forward to that and just more of making time for it, really.
And so you said you were going to run a Murder on the Orient Express campaign.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Oh, no.
You're putting words in my mouth now.
I'm sorry. Do you have the Murder on the Orient Express campaign book from your very generous family?
Yes.
But so you're not necessarily going to run a campaign that specific?
I will probably run a pre-generated campaign just to get everyone used to it.
Okay.
I mean, the trick is to just put something in the diary. I mean, how's tomorrow?
So I will go into it with also the not be restricted by the rules, and if we go off something else, and there'll be no soup making. That is a rule, I'm afraid. Braziers may make an appearance.
Lamps, a lot of hand lamps in Cthulhu, I think.
What was that? What was that hand gesture?
Me turning on a hand lamp.
Okay.
And expressing my thoughts. Adam, next for you, role-playing games?
Continuing with the games we're playing, and then trying to do some more GMing, either sticking with GURPS or I've just recently bought Fate Core.
As you said.
Fate is a slightly more abstracted way of doing roleplay. So it's like GURPS.
Danger Will Robinson.
Has
Danger
no
Will
setting. There's no setting to it. Okay, so you're in this place and you're travelling, and maybe you go and buy things, and kind of you don't have so much of a fully realised surrounding. It's that you do scenes, so you move from one scene to another, and it's much more abstracted in the way that things work and the way things come out.
And Fiasco worked.
I think it's quite similar. I've not played Fiasco.
Sorry, no, we both didn't make that.
But it's based around what they call aspects. So it's much more collaborative with the other players. That they say, okay, this is an aspect of my character, and so then in order to create the scene, you say, okay, I'm going to impose this on
RPG?
you. It's perhaps closer to theatre. It's somewhere in between. So I mean, actually, when we were playing Edge of the Empire, Lloyd's girlfriend was there, and she kind of came in and made some food and sat down on the sofa, and she was like, "This is great. It's like watching telly." So,
really bad telly.
Really badly underfunded.
But you know the actors, so you kind of
It's like when soap operas do a live episode and everything goes slightly wrong.
So was she playing your role when you had to watch that original role-playing game for 8 sessions or whatever, so they let you have a go? Lloyd, next for you in role-playing games.
So I've got 3 weeks until our next Edge of the Empire campaign, so I figure
I've
if I
seen
start
the date,
prepping now, I might have actually read something by the time it comes around.
He won't. He definitely
I
won't.
really won't.
Are you going to give me my one-off character so I can join in and be a bit of a...
It's a collaborative effort.
You have to wear a gimp suit for 6 sessions.
Exactly.
I've worn it at home, but separate. Okay.
You committed the cardinal crime right off the bat. You were like, just roll up a character for me, send it to me. That's not how it works.
I was supposed to be
That's
dipper in and
lazy
outer.
RPGing.
I'm a story element from him to come in and play. No one's grabbed me. Okay. For myself, possibly dipping in and out of Edge of Empire if I'm allowed to, if that's how it does work. I bought the Faith sci-fi role-playing game with the 3 races in the galaxy, and an outside threat turns up and you've got a 12 scenario campaign ready to go, which is a bit more board gamer friendly, which is on cards and stuff like that. So I'm still would like to give that a go GMing. I'm not sure I've played enough recently to be a good GM, but maybe pull on my distant memory of doing it previously. So to wrap up, because this is going out more to a board gaming audience who, like I said, it feels like there's been a renaissance of role-playing games. It feels like it's coming back with 5th edition and all the rest of it, and certainly many more people around me, as we've been hearing, have been going into them. Any tips for a player wanting to move into role-playing games?
So if you're born-again players like myself, there is a podcast called the Grognard Files that my friend Chris and his team do.
Would you say it's the best gaming podcast you know?
It was until today.
Apart from specifically episode 91.
There was a long pause. Gee, can you time how long that pause?
That's really aimed at people like myself who maybe have strayed away from the path and getting back into it, reminiscing about game RuneQuest. And
why do you think that? Because it does seem to be another thing that people have moved away.
Yeah.
And then come back in again. Is it just because we're a certain age?
I think that's
that this is what's going on. It's always happened.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just having the time and the resources.
Yeah, because I assume both of your kids are of a similar age, right? So it's that point where they're sort of semi-independent, and you start actually having some time.
Reclaim some of our own time. Yeah. And also, we're touching on GMing, about preparing for GMing. What I did was go onto YouTube, and you have actually people playing sessions there. Yeah. So you can get tips on how to run it. Just there, watch a session, watch it going on, and you see the dynamic between the GM and the players and how that runs. So
there's that guy on Geek and Sundry, right, that everyone raves about.
There's
voices unreal. Vin Diesel.
That is an entire.
Oh yes. I do know that one.
An entire group of professional voice actors. That is a very intimidating bar to set.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were all that.
And a bag of potato chips. So, to answer your question, it's Grognard Files, really good podcast, especially for old school games. And have a look on YouTube and see how the games interact if you want to get into it. Cool. Just do it.
Nice. Adam?
I think actually, and also perhaps this is a reason why there's been a small renaissance and there's been more board gamers getting into it, is that 5th edition D&D comes with a really great starter set. Yeah. You don't have to read the entire lore and all the rules. Yeah. It gives you a nice easy introduction. Buy a starter set, and as Lloyd said earlier, just put a date in the diary.
Just do it. When I started reading and seeing this whole starter sets, I don't have to read 5 A4 manuals of this, that, and the other to be able to do it. It's just all here for me. It's just fantastic. So I think as much as people are going back to the hobbies come towards people as well a bit more, and it's less of the this is our arcana, that unearthed arcana even. Lloyd?
Actually, mine's similar to Adam. So for me, the first one GMing was getting the Edge of Empire campaign. It's starter set, I should say. So it's by FFG, so you have that kind of confidence that it's from a board game publisher that you're familiar with. You understand the quality, broadly speaking, of their output. But the starter set is it's consistent, at least.
So it is consistent.
The starter set is incredibly accessible because, for me, not knowing D&D, I wasn't somebody that was into it as a kid, so the lore and things wasn't accessible to me. Someone would go, a wormling turns up, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. But for me, Star Wars is probably the most accessible thing. As somebody who hasn't been a fan of it, I say, for 20 years, it's still easy to jump into and know roughly what everything is. The starter set that they do is incredibly easy, in that literally every person who turns up just gets a booklet. It's cool. On the back is your background, read that, then open it up onto the first page, and it tells you everything you need to know. And it literally just goes through 7 boxes, like, when you're rolling dice, this is what you roll. Yeah. When you're doing something, this is what you look at. And for the GM, it's admittedly a very railroading heavy scenario, but it takes you through all the steps and it says, if they go off the path, flick to the back and there's all these other things that you can answer. There's a wolf down a hole if they want to do something stupid. But all of those things are there, and so it's an incredibly easy first intro, and there are basically no rules you have to read to start.
The biggest hurdle is in your mind. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us for episode 91 of the Game Pit. First of all, thank you very much to my wonderful guest, Stephen.
It's goodbye from them, and it's goodbye from me.
Very good.
Good night.
Adam?
Thank you.
Lloyd?
See you in 2 years when the next ban is up.
When you move on to some other quirky corner of gaming. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. We're going to go back to more regular board game and card game coverage next time around. And Sean will be back. I hope you haven't missed him too much.
The big man will return.
We are members of the Dice Tower Network. Head to dicetower.com where you will find lots of fantastic gaming coverage. You can get all our episodes on iTunes, Podbean and Stitcher. If you want to get in contact with us, we are on Twitter and Facebook at GamePit Podcast. It's the GamePit Podcast at gmail.com, or head to our BGG Guild. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Music by E. Aaron.
I'm not doing that. It can just be you and the three of us be like, no.